Welcome to the Vidcast, produced by the Straight Red Card. Um, Brett and I are going to talk about the World Cup final, Holland versus Spain. And first of all, Brett, it wasn't the prettiest game I've ever seen.
It really wasn't. Both teams were a little sloppy at times. There were flashes of quality, but when you have the quality of players that you had in the field, you would expect a little more control, a little more pace, and just more opportunities as a whole.
Yeah, and we'll get into the refereeing, but I think one of the things that made the game a little less continuous and there was a lack of flair. One of the things that I would definitely say, and it was one of the first notes I made in the first half, was did every Dutch player before the game do a couple lines of Coke, or did they drink too much coffee? Because they all came out. There seemed to be a lot of spazziness going on, and I can point to a few things. Obviously, I thought Van Bommel's tackle was ridiculous. It was a dumb tackle that early in the game. Van Persie's tackle was a total spaz tackle. Even when Sneijder got caught in the 25th minute on a foul that he didn't get a card for. Just spazzy stuff. And so there's a difference between being aggressive and then being Hong Kong Fooey spastic, like DeJong's Kung Fu kick to Xavi Alonso's midsection. Again, and that happened in the 28th minute, and it was just one after another foul. And then on top of that, you add this sort of spastic nature of Dyson's corner kick with. It just looked like not so much a lack of attention or focus, just spazzing out. Too much cocaine before the game. I don't know.
I'm going to throw out a theory.
All right.
I think the Dutch were psyched out by the octopus. I really do. I mean, how can this octopus be so spot on with its predictions? It's insane. The Dutch did come out crazy. They were quite rash on some of their tackles, like you mentioned, almost forcing the ref's hand to make the calls, even to throw out some cards on certain ones.
Yeah.
We'll get more into the ref later.
Right.
But yeah, they looked like this was like an entire team's first time out on a World Cup field. Their nerves got the best of them, it seemed like.
It certainly was a World Cup final, the first for these guys. But
yeah,
you look at the experience on the Spanish side playing in big, huge tournaments. They're certainly, for their club teams, have more experience doing that. And they looked very settled and very calm, while the Dutch looked, like I said, they drank too much coffee. And that didn't help because all those fouls started adding up. And we'll discuss the referee later, as you mentioned. But those fouls would hurt the Dutch later. Now, you look at the other disappointing part for the Dutch was their back four. And I already mentioned Tyson's corner kick whiff. But also how many bad balls down the line or down the field, how much bad service can one group of four guys have in a game? And I'm not just talking about Tyson. I'm talking about Van de Veel. I'm talking about a lot of guys on that back four for the Dutch team. It was ugly stuff.
Well, and to be fair, the entire Dutch team couldn't complete a pass.
Yeah.
It happened all game. I mean,
yeah.
There were plenty of plays where they would make stupid passes to people that are marked, and they'd end up losing the ball. They'd sometimes pass it right to the Spaniards. I mean, it's happened all game. And
I think one of the things that we mentioned earlier was before we came on the show was that Sneijder didn't play the role he was supposed to play, and that's maybe why that was a problem.
It was a glaring hole right there. So
I mean, well, you look around. Where was Sneijder most of the game? There were portions of the game I don't even remember him being on the field, and he would stroll back to play defense, but then he really didn't. I mean, outside of a couple occasions, make a nuisance of himself. And then the time that he did make a nuisance of himself, he totally spazzed out. So maybe I'm being a little critical, but I think a lot of people, and I think Lawless mentioned this yesterday, on a game preview for the World Cup final that Sneijder was going to have to play the role of ball keeper and distributor. He didn't do that today. In fact, they couldn't get him the ball.
Well, I think the one dangerous player that really stood out on the Dutch team was Robben the entire match.
Right.
Not the entire match. He had his screw ups and everything, but I thought he was probably their most dangerous player. Opened up the field, took on players on the dribble, forced a lot of corner kicks.
Yep.
I thought that he was, the man to watch, and he had his opportunity too.
He did.
Though he couldn't finish, but then again, I applaud the man for staying on his feet.
Yeah. I agree.
Majority of players at this point in the World Cup, when they hit that contact right there outside the box, they would have hit the ground.
And I think
he stayed up completely, and I applaud him for it. It was great to see.
I mean, there are probably some Dutch fans that wish he would have gone down because it's quite possible. Not only did he get the free kick, or maybe it was close enough even for a PK, but it could have gotten Puyol a straight red, or even a yellow.
Yep.
So, that's going to be one of those things we're all going to look back on, and I'm sure Robben will too. But you brought up a good point. He couldn't finish. He had two opportunities, really, where you think usually Arjen Robben is going to finish this. But he wasn't alone out there. Sergio Ramos, I mean, if Spain doesn't win this game, how many misses did that guy have? So finishing was just a problem throughout the game for everybody.
Yeah. He had the wide open header in the first half off of corner kick.
Right.
And he sailed wide open. I mean, he sailed it over the bar. I don't know how he did not finish that. I mean, that was a clinical finish. Mm-hmm. Should have been.
Yeah, it should have been.
But he sailed it high. Although, to tell you the truth, he does hit my man of the match for the entire game. He was everywhere, it seemed like. It was always a threat.
Yeah, I agree that he was there when he needed to be. I wouldn't name him the man of the match, mostly because I think the work that Iniesta and Xavi did in the middle were just, again, I mean, they're little tiny guys, and sometimes you lose track of which one is which. But they just seemed throughout the whole game, especially Xavi to me, just to be such a calming force and great distribution of the ball. They were calm, as usual, clinical. It took them a while to penetrate the Dutch defense, but you knew it was coming. And we get back to missed opportunities, though. Fabregas, Iniesta, they both had great opportunities in the overtime, but they just refused to shoot the ball. And again, Stecklenburg came and closed those angles down on them. They should have shot. So we're talking about finishing. The Spanish, they're more players than just Sergio Ramos, who could not finish today.
Yeah, and you know what? I probably would have ranked Iniesta up there. I know he got the game-winning goal, and he played well. My only complaint with him, and he just seemed to hit the ground a little too easy at a lot of instances. I mean, there were times where he was fouled, rightly, but, I mean, there were blatant times where he was touched a little bit, and he just fell to the ground, and drew a lot of fouls, because like you said before, he is a short guy. I mean, if he hits the ground, any ref's really going to assume, unless they have the perfect view of it, that he got clipped.